So now I'm going to tell like war stories. No,
I see people in your comments, but seriously, what happened? Like, when your parents split up, you get 2 Christmases. Like,
where's Nick? And just trying to beat a question out of me. Like, you're turning this podcast around on me. So
but we're called the Antihero Podcast. You can't miss it. It's a green skeleton with a microphone.
Calling all units. Donut Shop has a fresh dozen. Go ahead and take a 1040.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Back with the Donut Shop Podcast. I'm on location on a trip in Central Florida and getting together with Tyler from the Antihero Podcast. Just talk podcast stuff and other stuff like that. So welcome to the Donut Shop Podcast.
I've been waiting to do this the whole time. Okay, they're not real. Every time I see your show, I wonder, like, does this guy get fresh donuts every time he shoots?
Dude, they're fresh and they look shiny with the lights, like probably like my face right now. But yeah, those are a hot buy from Amazon. You can flip them. They have magnets on the bottom. They're supposed to go on like your fridge.
They look so real.
Yeah, but after the first show where we ate donuts, and I ate 2 donuts and I felt terrible after, and they were great donuts, but I ate 2 donuts during the show. My wife was like, dude, you can't eat donuts every time you do a podcast because,
True.
You know, not to knock the name of the podcast, but donuts are not always healthy for you. And if anybody has a good protein donut company that wants to sponsor the show, I will be happy to hawk your protein donuts. But as of right now, we haven't located one.
Is that a thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we actually had one come into my department to talk about and do a thing for officers. But what I think it was a whatever these like protein companies are. And then she's hawking one of those pyramid protein schemes and then kind of funneling it into smoothies and donuts. But they were good, but she wasn't big enough to be like, yeah, I'm going to sponsor a podcast, So I was like, but hey, if you know one, I'm happy to eat your protein donuts because we are probably of the type that need massive amounts of protein in our life.
Well, sorry to break kayfabe. I don't know if you wanted your listeners to not know.
It doesn't matter.
Now you guys know. A little insider.
I think I've mentioned it before. Just keep the illusion alive, and I just rotate them around. You're a big guest, so you got the full set.
Nice.
Everything that's in the Ziploc bag of donuts. So cheers and welcome. He's got a full cup of coffee.
So you can see the logo.
Yeah, here's product placement.
I feel like this is a sweet room. I feel like I just missed out on the biggest party of the year, and everybody else is out getting their Denny's breakfast.
Yeah.
Like setup. I mean, no one can see it, but it's a sweet setup.
A lot of the people are at Rock and Brews right now down the street. Yeah. And so for anybody that knows, obviously I'm in South Florida. He's in Central Florida. I happen to be up here in Central Florida for a get-together of some longtime friends in the Star Wars community.
I didn't know you were a nerd.
Yeah, I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd. Whatever.
I love Star Wars.
Yeah. But I used to get, the guys at work would pick on you and use it as a point to like barb. Everybody needs to try and find a weakness in somebody.
Yeah, it's toxic.
And it's a toxic environment. But I don't really care. As long as I'm having fun, that's all that I care about. So, so I'm up here. We have a drinking group. So to go to the dark side, we have a drinking group that gets together, try to get together every year, kind of like a family.
This guy is underplaying it. They have an entire room that's locked during the day dedicated to partying and drinking.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is.
Not to be confused with this room that's also set up for partying and drinking.
It is. So this is our room. So it's like this area of the floor has a couple different like kind of presidential suite type rooms, and I luck out and I get this and share this with a couple friends, and so I knew it had this nice interview table that we could use, and so I was like, I hit up Tyler and was like, let's do this now, and it works out. So here we are. I got all the lights, I got all the cameras, and some Special K and donuts. So
we had to tell the strippers to shh while we do this.
Yeah, it's a good time. Yeah, but it's not safe for social media. It's not a social media sharing party.
Put your phones away.
Yeah. It's a Facebook group that everything gets published inside the Facebook group. So it's a private Facebook group. So it's a good group. So but that's the thing. And I kind of promote that thing, and I know it doesn't always lend well to, oh, but on the side, you also do a podcast about cops. I try to have friends in all places, high and low, so all over the place, and that I don't always have to deal with the law enforcement life. It's great to be able to bounce law enforcement stories and share experiences with other cops and stuff like that. But it's also good to unwind with just people that don't talk about that.
Yeah, and your perspective on life too, man. This job, like, getting into the media side and getting into the podcasting world and the entrepreneurship and all that stuff. I would have nothing of merit to bring if I hadn't been a cop in the military, and then a cop for the last 15 years of my life. Mm-hmm. I would have no cool concepts for t-shirt designs. Mm-hmm. I would have nothing to talk about on a podcast. So I really owe everything to that life or those occupations that I did. But, I'm enjoying the other side of life that's not government work also a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, so I saw, so we'll talk. Where do we want to start? We can talk about your t-shirt company, just because I'll bring it up because I saw you were at a big concert festival that's put on by one of the local radio stations in Central Florida, Earth Day Birthday by JRR. So you had a booth for the t-shirt company, and then you can kind of cross-pollinate a little bit with some podcast stuff there.
Yeah.
But,
it's
So what's the t-shirt company, or tell them about it?
Yeah, so it's called Refracted Wolf Apparel. It's all-American outsider apparel, and the concept was, a couple years ago, I loved, I'm a combat vet and I'm a cop. I would wear grunt style and those shirts,
Yeah.
But I also loved wearing concert shirts,
Yes.
I loved concert shirts. I love this style, t-shirt you would see when you go to a concert and you walk by the booth and you're like, I gotta get a shirt.
Yep.
So I was like, what about an alt version of grunt style where it's, it's not for everybody. Mm-hmm. So, and kind of our message is a little bit like anti-tyrannical in a way,
Yeah.
In a refracted wolf is the concept is, look at it there's a small village, right? And there's a wolf in the wood line and all these sheep. The sheepdog keeps that wolf at bay at the wood line, right? Keeps him from coming in and fucking with the sheep. Oh, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, go
Okay.
for it. Let it ride.
So the sheepdog does his job and statistically does it very well.
Yeah.
He keeps the wolf at bay in the wood line. However, if the sheep are we need to get rid of that wolf in order to live our lives, the sheepdog goes, I'm not offensive. I'm defensive. I protect you. They're going to go contact a refracted wolf, a wolf that used to hunt sheep, but now, in a way, is on the good side. Oh. This sounds super corny, but
I like it.
So they're going to hire that wolf to go kill this wolf, and it's just it's a wolf mindset and a sheepdog mindset are two different mindsets. They're none's better than the other. Mm-hmm. But I've never identified as a sheepdog. But I went to combat at 19 years old, and so that shaped me in just having a wolf mentality, but using it for good. Mm-hmm. So that's a concept, and we make badass t-shirts.
I like it, and I'm the concert tee guy. I love it. I mean, I'm rocking my buddy's company right now. What's up, Ian? He owns a pry bar company. It's going to soon be a little bit of a knife company too. But he's got the metal look,
the slam font.
The font with Phoenix Tool Works. So what's up, Ian? So I'm rocking his shirt today. So it's got that metal font, and it's ready to go. But yeah, I love a good concert tee. The only thing that in concert tees that I kind of stay back on now is the lineup or the tour shirts. But I love shirts. Yep. So my problem is just too many black shirts.
That's my closet. And I've got, dude, I'm telling you, I've got shirts from the 7th grade still. Yeah. I've always loved shirts. I don't know what it is. They're getting holes and they're cut up, but I have an Iron Maiden shirt I've had since I think 6th or 7th grade.
Oh wow.
And so I knew I loved shirts, and again, I sound insane, but I kind of realized if I love shirts so much, why don't I invest my time and money into it and see if I can, So we've been going since 2021.
Okay. Yeah.
and just no, we're rolling as we go. No investments, no nothing. Kind of just, I'm still active law enforcement. It's it went from a side hustle, now it's growing into legitimate business. But we're not grunt style big.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, but you're taking after our friends in the fire service. They always have side hustles. They're AC repairmen or electricians and stuff.
Mowers,
lawn companies. Yeah, so you're just doing the best you can do for side hustles in law enforcement. Keep yourself active. Maybe catch a free concert in the middle of it, and get to go hang out. But you're probably having to talk to everybody and sell and do all that kind of stuff.
I noticed with a booth, when you have a booth, you have to have at least two people. Mm-hmm. One person to do sales, while the other person engages with people.
Yeah.
Because it's so rude when you're engaging with somebody to go, hold on, I got to make this sale. Totally. However, it's rude to the people that are trying to buy something and you're just talking. Mm-hmm. And so, little things.
Yeah, no, and it's fun to be able to learn that, because then, similar to starting to learn the service industry with waiters and servers and stuff like that, you just get to see a little bit of that back, and you're like, oh, but sometimes it blows out to other parts in your life, and you realize how you can use that in other parts of your life. And so that's why I love learning about other industries and other jobs, and then how I can apply it to me.
People want it, like, they buy shirts from other places. They have 100 shirts. Why buy your shirt?
Mm-hmm.
You got to do things like, for instance, promo code DONUT is going to get you 15% off any order at refractedwolfapparel.com.
Hey, what's up?
And that's not a sales tactic. That's like me, like, I'm asking you for your business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not at any point in my life or in this business where I don't need, I'm asking. So when you give people, like, this is a specific code for this podcast. Mm-hmm. If I was watching, I'd be like, oh shit, like, that's only a code that X amount of people are going to get. So I'm going to use it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to buy and support. So,
yeah. That's awesome. Well, hey, thanks. That's cool. That's dope. So you've rolled that in from a couple other aspects of your life. You said at 19, you went over to the Middle East, mm-hmm. and you fought. Thank you very much. A lot
of for my service, everyone.
Yeah, it's a lot of love, and I have a lot of friends. I've known military my whole life, through different adults that I grew up around and stuff. Loved it. I didn't make the choice to go. Please don't hold it against me, but I love hanging out with all my guys, like through work and stuff like that, going out for Marine Corps birthday, and especially after a lot of them got back, like from Iraq and Afghanistan, and hanging out. I had to go to, Veterans Day, because I'm an honor guard, Veterans Day, after hanging out for Marine Corps birthday with a bunch of guys, and just doing shot for shot with them for, unfortunately, terribly, everybody that didn't come back with them. And that Veterans Day was a very tough one to get up for. That some of them didn't have to. I had to go to honor guard the next day, and I got thrown out there on bugle duty. It's just a speaker, folks. It's just like my donuts. It's, at least for mine, it's not real. But
whoa, what?
There's a lot respect to a lot of them that play bugle. At least for my agency, it's a speaker.
So you don't know how to play a bugle?
I do not, sir. Sir. But I'm there.
Stolen valor.
Yeah, you're very right. But I have a lot of respect, and I'm not trying to make any money in the streets off people for pretending.
I've always said this about military service. First off, it's the greatest part about our country is that you have a choice. B, I'm going to be the first one to call out veterans. There's a lot of benefits. This isn't World War II. This isn't Vietnam. You sign up to go. You put yourself in the positions that you put yourself into. You come back. You are taken care of by the VA. Everybody can shit on the VA all they want, mm-hmm. but they are taken care of. Our generation is taken care of. I cannot stand it when vets actually expect you without saying it to like, woe is me, and again, I'm not saying like I don't respect veterans along with me or anything like that. I'm just saying like there's a lot of veterans that we call them maybe like bro vets that are like they feel like they're entitled or they got one up on everybody. And on the flip side, there's two types of men that didn't join. So the men that never joined the military, there's two types. There's the ones that are super secure in themselves, as you are, and are like, much love. wasn't for me. And I love the fact that you guys did it, and you can go and have drinks with them and support them, and there's no insecurities there. The other type are the ones that are super insecure and are like, fucking volunteers, you know, and like, and they're a little insecure that they didn't join. And and veterans will always have that right to go, I signed up. I volunteered to go to war. You know, but I don't announce that, but I know it in my head. I'm proud of myself, you know. But at the time I was 19, I didn't have much going on.
But it was a big thing, you know. Like for me, like I was a sophomore in college, right down the street at UCF. I mean, 9/11, and so that was our era, you know. Like that's what you were going basically to you know, rebuttal, or basically to say, hey, fuck you, you know. Like so, and for whatever means or whatever reasoning they created for us to be over there, you know, and you went over there. So, you know, so yeah, thank you.
There's a lot of, timing is everything. I know tons of people that were like sports were a big thing. They were going for college, or they were in college, or they, you know, and it's like, do you want to give up what you're doing to go fight in a war? And on top of that, no one, now we know, but I don't, you know, there could be an argument that we didn't need to be there at all.
Right. Yeah. there's full podcasts about why we were there and what purposes and stuff like that. But I mean, it's the same thing that they said about the first Gulf War, or about Desert Storm and stuff. You know, why we were there, and then you deep dives on why we go into any wars and stuff like that. You know, you can find, and what's going on currently to this day, you know,
the military industrial complex rules everything.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah. Eisenhower talk about the military industrial complex. Be weary of the military industrial complex, you know, when he left, to say, like, just don't let him do it. And but that's all we do, you know. $60 billion is really just to fund your friends.
I will tell you this. You don't want to live in a country that doesn't sharpen the spear every now and again. True. You know, if we didn't have this generation of people our age that went to war and knows how to use a rifle because they were in, you know, if we never had the GWAT, the Global War on Terror, we'd be very vulnerable. So I do think that I think that there's a strategy to keep us sharp, to keep weapons proficient, to keep tactics proficient in our tier 1 communities or tier 2 communities. But I also agree with it. You know, if we were like, oh, there's no threat, let's all just chill for 50 years.
Yeah.
And then the threat that's been looming, waiting to rear its head, comes, and we're not ready because we haven't practiced.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a really shitty way to say it. It's practice.
That's the word that I kept putting in. I'm like, all right, how am I going to put the word practice out there when guys are losing their lives and stuff like that? But you know, it for all intents and purposes, it's practice.
Because I mean,
you know,
the casualty rate in the Global War on Terror doesn't hold a candle to previous wars. And again, some of the bro vets might get mad at me for saying that, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
And there's always a bigger fish too. I can sit there and go, I deployed to Baghdad. There's another guy in the room that's gonna go, I deployed 3 times. And then there's another guy that was, I was Special Forces. And then there's another guy that was like, I was Delta Force. And then it just goes on. There's always a bigger fish. So you can never let it get to your, you know, let it consume you and you become egotistical over the fact that you served your country. It just goes without saying.
And then you got to step back a little bit and respect everybody for what they did and what they saw and how it affected them, and you know how they deal with it, you know, because with mental health and stuff like that nowadays. And it's the same thing for cops, you know. Some people would be like, bro, but you were just an SRO or whatever, you know, like that kind of thing. It's like, hey man, I still put that vest on every day, and I still put that belt on every day that destroys my body in itself. And that, because I always tell people that I'm going to go into 3 different stories, but like, you know, you talk about the agencies that don't wear vests, you know, and they're like, they just throw them on like when something hot happens. And, you know, they're like, so there's the conversation when you start the job and it's like, are you going to wear a vest or you're not going to wear a vest? You know, it's like, well, if you don't wear a vest, you could die when you get shot. And I go, yeah, but if you wear a vest, you slowly die through your career, you know, was my analogy. You know, granted, I wear a vest every day, but you feel that death slowly happening throughout your career as it compresses your back and moves, especially over my career with the movement of stuff from a belt to a vest, when everybody started getting the vest, the the carrier type vests and everything. And, I like it, but we just find more real estate now and we put more crap on it.
Oh yeah. There's always something.
Heavier stuff. So it's just,
well, to go back on what you're saying, even SROs, we bust on SROs all the time, but okay, let's say you do 20 years as an SRO. Every day for 20 years, you are prepping to kill someone that's going to come harm your children. You are prepping for that every day.
Yeah.
You have a plan and you know you're going to do it. 20 years of that, Monday through Friday, is going to affect you. I mean, people will be like, oh, but I'm just telling you, you might not, we don't have to categorize it as PTSD because maybe there wasn't a traumatic event, but maybe things that are under the PTSD umbrella, like stress, anxiety, things that you have to go to therapy for someone to tell you, like when you retire, like, hey man, you know that now there's no one out to kill you. There's no one out that wants to harm you because of what you wear. Yeah. Now you don't have to live like that anymore. Your brain's not going to shut that off.
Yeah.
You have to have someone like convince you. Like you're like, oh, okay, it's just things like that.
Yeah, I did it for 6 years. I was in the schools. I was in elementary school. It's great. And I tell people that it's not the kids that you're worried about in an elementary school. It's their parents who are learning that they don't like each other anymore, that want to come and snatch one up and or that kind of stuff. Yeah. So you're dealing more with the parents. In the middle schools, the kids are starting to learn how to become assholes. So you've got a mix because the parents are now getting divorces and they're getting restraining orders and injunctions and domestic violence and stuff. And then when you get to the high school, the kids have now become assholes. They're now getting their hands on weapons. They're now deciding to deal drugs and stuff like that. So when I was in the high school, it was slightly a glorified bouncer at a nightclub where you're using those same skills to read a crowd and walk around and observe movements within groups of kids that are now communicating through cell phones. So you can't necessarily see people yell at each other, but then all of a sudden they start to migrate and you're like, all right, they're migrating into a direction where they may know there's less coverage to do a fight or beat somebody up or whatever. Yeah. So it's like, and I explain it almost like as if it was a jail and you're watching the yard and stuff like that. But when you're trying to keep kids from hurting each other, unfortunately, you're observing that stuff and you have to read kids. And that's the thing. And then I would do that. I was pre-Stoneman Douglas. So, being in Broward County, like that's a huge marker for schools, just like we say Columbine. But so I had a little more freedom in the schools. Like now they are full blown anchored to the school. You cannot leave unless there's an officer there. Bell to bell. You were there. Whereas we were allowed to like move around and all right, if we needed to run out to get lunch or something like that, we could. But I was consistently running drills in my head during lunch. All right, boom, boom, boom to my 5 o'clock. All right, what am I doing? And I was just running those scenarios. So it's the same thing you do on the road where we're always going to a call and we're running through 5 different scenarios. All right, when I walk up or when I put it in park, this is what's going to happen.
When shit hits the fan in every single call you go to, you have to expect the worst because you have to know how to react. Persevere and react. And so I just think that years and years and years of that mindset, it'll wear on you.
Yeah. So, and then, because of fingers crossed, you never walk up on a dead body on a mutilated scene that you might on the road. You're hopefully not walking into that at a school, but there's that little bit of a small pressure, that's coming at you. So.
And SROs, man, I give it to them because the way I understand school resource officers is that you are a liaison between the law enforcement entity and the school system, and you have to play. It is not black and white. Every school is different. The relationship between admin and that school resource officer is different in every school you go to. Some of them never get along. One might kneel to the other one, but it's a very unique relationship. And, when 2 kids are putting their hands on each other, some schools, I've seen it, some schools say, we do not want you getting involved unless you feel, as a law enforcement officer, you can't not get involved. They would prefer to handle everything school admin. Some schools are like, yeah, the 2 kids are fighting. You're here to be a cop. You got to do what you got to do. And it's just, and then it's a very hot topic, a youth getting tuned up by a cop, even though out on the street, that youth, it would have been good to go. It's in a school being filmed. Now it's like that's a PR nightmare.
Yeah, I used to find all my videos and not tuning up, but just snatching kids apart, breaking up fights and stuff. And I used to call it like where I could have like a matrix, 360 of all the videos of me breaking up and jumping into the middle of brawls and stuff like that. And so it was funny. I used to have all those, but yeah, to the point you're kind of making with the SROs being in the middle of a big field, our SROs, like in my agency, were the second ones because traffic got them, and then SWAT has them. SBRs, short barrel rifles. Yeah. Our SROs were the first ones to get short barrel rifles because they were like, those guys need to be able to deploy it. They are basically, they're sorry guys, you're not tier 1, I get it, but they're not SWAT operators, but they are expected to be nearly SWAT capable. They're expected to be SWAT capable in many people's eyes, but they know what they are. But they're expected to be some great tacticians because they know that they're going to be the first ones there. Yep. They're the only one there, except for in the high school. They're the only one there. So you've got to get work done before the road guys even get there. Yep. No matter what the alert tone is or how fast you can drive or traffic, you're in there and you're hopefully plugging away already with that SBR or with your handgun, getting the job done before anybody shows up. So those guys are expected to be, SWAT has time to show up. Yeah. Those guys need to act immediately, and they're expected to be as good as SWAT.
You need to know every inch of the layout of your school. Yeah. Because you have to relay all the info to the 100 knuckle draggers that are just coming to lay waste. Yeah. I forgot we're active cops. We can't talk like that.
Yeah.
Stop a threat. Neutralize a threat.
Neutralize a threat. Yeah. I'll use my PIO terminologies.
Because they're coming in hot. Like that mindset. Like it's a different response. So there's like a response to a code 3 call where somebody was stabbed. A guy might be. You're going. You know, adrenaline's going. There's a response that you're getting tuned up.
Exactly.
And I can't hear you. You're not coming out. I'm going to that. And then I've never responded to it, I don't think, an active shooter or what is you think active shooter. I did one time, active shooter at the mall. Mm-hmm. I mean, the response is insane because I don't think anybody was listening to the radio. You could just see it in the city that we're in the area. I mean, you could see blue lights coming from miles. Yeah. Just looking at every mirror, everything, like everyone's swarming to this mall. And now you're at the mall. The mall is pretty fucking big.
Yeah.
Luckily it was fireworks.
Yep. But we had the same thing.
The reaction, the Miami, what was it?
Oh, the alien, the potential alien one. Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's when people freak out like that, it's like rightfully so. if I was in the mall and I saw that, I'd be like, oh shit, there's a shooting here.
Yeah.
So, but the response to that. So when those guys are coming to your school, it's not a training event. It is like I have to coordinate because these cops are ready to stop a threat, aka they're ready to shoot somebody.
Yeah.
So
and then you got to make sure that they're coming in the right entrances and not shooting at each other, and doing all that. And so it turns in, and so then that person has to become, like you said, the liaison or the bridge, and then the communicator and stuff. So there's a lot of step responsibilities that they have to work through, which hopefully they're just working on cleanup after that by the time everybody gets there. Sorry guys, took this one. This was mine.
Yep.
Like my tag is already on, like that kind of thing. But, it's, so I did that for 6 years and I enjoyed every minute of it. My immune system was alive and kicking, working in the schools because
kids are sick every day.
I was high-fiving every one of them. I was like, let me get all your germs, and I'm just going to see what airborne can do for me, and see if vitamin C can keep me alive. But yeah, those kids that's the most dangerous thing.
Yeah, all the SROs can know that we're showing them some love because I will say this too. Everybody can joke on SROs all they want, but when it comes to my kids' schools, I've always said this. I really don't want some guy that's good with the kids and in the photos, and I get it that it's part of the job, and that will never change. All I care about is that my guy's a stone cold killer. Mm-hmm. He could not talk to these kids at all, but as soon as there's a threat in that school, he has no problems getting out and throwing lead down range, and that's all I want. Mm-hmm. So if he can do that and be really cool with the kids and be in the photos, that's all.
Great hybrid.
Yes, but I don't. terrified of is the guy that's out there doing the SRO stuff, and then the threat comes in and he can't act accordingly.
Yep.
Which that's any cop. That's not just SROs. You'll see that on the road where like you're like, oh, that guy is going to be Rambo, and then you're like, oh, okay, I had you pinned the wrong way.
Yeah, he's getting canceled off of every call. Every time he gets sent for a backup, it's like, no, I'll be in way.
Or the 6'2", 295-pound dudes that you think's gonna handle business, and you're like, oh, you don't like to go hands on because you've never been in a business. Okay.
Yeah. That's what. Yeah, I showed up. I showed up the other day. I heard like a backup call because our county has Baker Act units. So they've got a team that's out doing Baker Acts and stuff. And so I heard a backup call. Like they don't use our channel, but they came over our channel and said, hey, they're out at this house and they could use a backup.
Are they a law enforcement civilian hybrid?
They're out there with the civilians from one of the mental health agencies, but they're the transport. So they're detention deputies. Okay. And they're doing it. So, and I told them on scene after the fact that mad respect, like you guys do God's work with, and you take a lot of work off of our patrol units, having to deal with a lot of the mental health stuff. But, they were kind of like, each one of them had a wrist. The woman still had a water bottle. And so I showed up and I'm like, all right, you guys are good. I'm happy about that. But she going in custody? Yeah. All right, let's pop these elbows and let's get her cuffed, And so they were kind of like finagling with her, and they're like, 13-year-old kids are back there. And I'm like, kid's 13 years old. I'm pretty sure mom with a bag over her head is, because mom put a bag over her head, not them. It wasn't a spit bag. I was like, pretty sure that they're well aware of mom, and you guys aren't roughing her up. You're literally just putting her in cuffs. Like, just let's get her in cuffs.
Is this the PC version of you that wants to say like it works? Because I am on the other side of the argument where I think this is law enforcement admins, not one particular agency, just in general, at least here in Florida, attempt to say the social worker theory works because we have to have hybrids. We have to have deputies going with the civilians. So already the model's pointless because we're still using a sworn guy to do the job. And then they go and they only work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. Well, unfortunately, people that need to be taken into custody against their will operate at all times of the day, all days of the week. So, it's at the end of the day, social workers, the people that need to be taken into custody against their will for their mental state, typically civilians cannot handle, in my experience.
Yeah. Well, no, so there's a civilian agency that it's a mental health agency in the county that goes around and checks in on people that maybe call and say they're having some ideologies and they're having a tough time. And they talk to them. Law enforcement obviously goes to, hey, I'm about to do it or I want to do it. Like we have the elevated amount, but it's just, and then they have the Baker Act team from the county that then also might go there to back them up. And they know they're going to take this person into custody. So they come. And what they do is they're pretty much helping out across the county cities and stuff that just, because it's a long process to Baker Act somebody, transport them to, especially for us now, like our receiving facilities are going away. So we have to go out to the east side of the Fort Lauderdale.
Funding?
Yeah. Or the hospitals just don't want to take them. Granted, they have to take them, but they're like basically telling us you're not welcome.
Florida's mental health crisis is a very, very, what's the right word for it? It's not known.
Well, and that's, So
unspoken.
There's where I am coming back to the road back in October. Anybody that works in the building, I was above the first floor guy, working in the building, more administrative.
You're back to being a street cop.
Yay!
Man. Yeah.
And so I'm busy. I'm not saying I turned a blind eye to the plight of road patrol, but I was just doing
it's
what
not your specific job title anymore.
There's many different jobs in the police department. You have to do it. And so for 12 years, schools and then community resource and PIO, I just wasn't aware of it. And like I said, I don't hang out with a lot of cops all the time, so I don't hear a lot of the scuttle. So now being back on the road, it's just seeing the amount of mental health compared to 12 years ago when I left the road is amazing to me. The amount of mental health problems, the amount of, because I work days, so I come in at 6:30 in the morning, the amount of people that are sleeping in their cars, because the most important thing to most people is your car, because it gets you to and from where you need to go, because Florida sucks for public transportation. So if your house is going to be the first thing to go, you let your house go first, and then, or you get kicked out of your parents because you're whatever, all that kind of stuff. So the amount of people living in their cars, and it's like, and I fucking feel for them, you know, and as long as they're not an asshole to me, I try to work with them, you know, like you get the businesses that call, hey, there's a guy sleeping out here. You know, I go up and I'm a respectful dude. What's going on, man? Hey, you're on private property. You know, they're on the trespass program. It's time to go. I'm going to identify you and stuff like that. You're good. You're not a pet or ass. And all right, off you go. You know, don't come back here. Hey, here's an idea of some other places that are a little more hospitable for sleeping in your car. You know, you're not going to get messed with. You're not going to get murdered. You know, do your thing. Just, good luck. If you need anything from me, let me know. Yeah. You know, but it's just seeing the amount of it is, I don't know what it's like in Central Florida. You know, I'm not
probably just as bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I have one in my family, a mentally ill person. There is no, it just, I feel like most of the time the downfall is in the adult part of their life, where it's not manageable anymore. And I always, before my uncle, like, went extremely off the deep end with his mental illness, I always thought as a cop, like, man, their families abandoned them. Their families abandoned them. Like, shame on them. This person's out on the street because society doesn't care. I don't care. I don't know you. I'm not going to give you money from my funds. Society as a whole can give you the government programs that aren't working, right? But the people that should care about you threw you to the streets. And then I experienced it, and there's just no working with them. I shouldn't say all of them, but a lot of them. They're not violent or mean, and they don't steal, but they don't take their medication, and then some mental illnesses make them blame the whole world. And there's not, they shouldn't blame themselves, but the accountability of helping yourself is not there.
Yeah,
it's everybody else, and everybody's out to get them, and everybody might fucking.
And it's tough, and I did a lot of study in that. I was a negotiator for 8 years, and so I did probably enough to get a degree out of it with the amount of training that we did. And it's hard. And a lot of times it's just because they don't like the side effects of the medication that they're being prescribed. It messes with all kinds of stuff. One of them being libido. And that's a driver of most of us, you know, so it messes with libido. It messes with your eating. It makes you this or that. And so it's just when they're messing with all those different types of medication, and then it's all an experiment. That's why they call it a practice, you know, for doctors. They're experimenting on you. They're like, hey,
it's
try this
working.
and this one, you know. But then you've got to let it go. You've got to have the uptake where you're doing 2-3 weeks on that medication for you to even get the actual benefits from it. Well, 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, especially today's society, we can't live for 2 to 3 weeks still being crazy.
Yeah.
While you're waiting for this to help you. So it's a tough thing. And then they just, you know, then to get it, either it costs money or they're in a program, or, you know, and it's crazy. And it's just going more and more these days. And we're seeing it on the streets now. And
the fights that I got into, I shouldn't say fights. The physical confrontations that I got into as a cop, I would say 90-95% mentally ill people. You get into it thinking you're going to be fighting with bad guys, and of course, if anybody doesn't know, I'll be the first one to tell you, cops join for the action. I joined to get in car chases, which I've never done, by the way. Yeah. I joined too late, and to fight people. I wanted to go hands-on with bad guys. And as it turns out, you're fighting with mentally ill people all the time. And then as I grew into my career a little bit, I started feeling terrible for some of the things, the force that I used, all within policy, that person didn't deserve that. They're not in the right state of mind. Whether they're screaming at you, naked, kicking you, trying to bite you, that's I kind of look at it now as like, what if a child was doing that? You wouldn't use all the force that you're allowed to on that child. You wouldn't, even if, you know, the state wanted to declare that parenting, might not be the best answer. And so with adults with mental illnesses, you know, I'm convincing myself maybe these programs are a good idea because I just like looking back on it, you know, and I won't now. I hate it. When I go hands on, I'm constantly, this is going to sound super libtard, but I am constantly like borderline stroking people, patting them, telling them it's okay as we're forcing them to the ground. I want to do everything I can to let something in this person's brain know that we're doing it for them. Like, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. And then you have the other flip side, not mental illness, but a whole nother conversation for autism.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Those, I know the patting and the talking to and the stroking does work.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple times where, man, like 12-year-olds could pick me up and throw me. And those kids especially does not warrant any type of force.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break, but when I get back, I want to talk to you about the talking to, the over verbalization. So we'll be right back. Hey, what's up, guys? Just so you know, we created a Donut Shop Podcast Clips channel. Just clips, meat and potatoes. Some of the best parts of each of our episodes are going to be over on that channel. You can go check it out. Hit the link down in our description. Like, follow, and subscribe. All the stuff over on that channel too. Help us out. All right, so we're back. So you were, when we left off, you were talking about like talking to people and kind of talking people down and working with them rather than just jumping right in and kind of grabbing them and thumping them. And I said to you on the break that part of that for me, like having been a negotiator in the department, it's a part-time job. It's not like I was a full-time negotiator, but I'm consistently the one that wants to talk to people, and as long as there's nothing holding, you talk to them. You talk to them, kind of play the games, play into them, and sometimes you can use your words to bring them in and all right, cuff or leave the house or calm down or whatever, that kind of thing. So I always find that talking to people is sometimes my forte.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think that's just something you get as an experience comes. You do realize times on your side, like you said, on a patrol level, there's no calls holding. Let's handle this. You said offline, we know we're going to be back here. When you want him to have a good rapport with him, if we're out here every single week, or do you want him to become more recluse in his home? So, but then on the larger scale, like let's say a call out where like all of high risk incident command is there.
Yeah.
As long as it's not a hostage situation, it's a barricade. But give it 8 hours before SWAT tears down the fourth wall of the home.
Totally, dude.
Ruins the house with gas.
Oh my God, I've been on those. Yeah, slashing every window, gassing the whole thing.
Amount of property damage that has to be like.
We did one where we literally throw phone, inside information, throw phones that have cameras all over them and microphones all over them that we could hear. Pretty much all we could hear in the house was drip, drip from like the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
That's all we could hear. And we're telling them, we're pretty sure, because the call originated with shots fired. So we're pretty sure it was a suicide, like done. But we set up on it as a barricaded subject, and SWAT ripped out every window, gassed the entire house. And then we as negotiators pretty much got to listen to every smoke or every CS go in, and spray and stuff and watch it all on camera. So that was fun. And then there was another one where there was a guy in the house, again by himself, and the team went up to the door with the shield to try and I think they were going to try and throw a throw phone for us, and the guy came out with a gun. So they back right up, and it turned into, all right, call in 2 more Bearcats. I know you enjoy Bearcats. 2 more Bearcats. And they basically remodeled the front of the house. And the guy happened to be a roommate of the homeowner. And the homeowner at the end of it all, he wasn't on scene or anything, was basically like, I mean, they were jalousie windows. I guess it was time to change them out. But they literally took out 2 full sets of jalousie windows and pulled almost the whole front of the house off.
Do we pay for that?
I think the
typically?
city did pay
Yeah,
for it.
I
Yeah.
would imagine
So he
so.
probably got new hurricane windows, nice clean front hurricane windows and stuff. And, and so for that guy, it's just sad because it was just a roommate that was living kind of like renting from him. It was a friend he was helping out, and the guy had a mental break for whatever reason. And then we assisted with the remodeling of his house.
Yeah, well, nowadays we're getting smart as a culture, as law enforcement, and we're not allowing people to make us the shooters. I cannot tell you how many times mental health call comes out, suicidal person comes out. They're not coming out of their home. We do our due diligence, and the commander on scene goes, "Pack it up. We're done.
Yep.
We're done." We'd rather, as bad as it sounds, we'd rather have them harm themselves than force us to harm them trying to help them.
Correct. Yes, because we've had those. I've been on that call where they ended up having to take a life, and it's sad. It's not cool. And when you think about it, in hindsight, that person may not have done it, but they forced us to. It was all above bar, but you just, and so nowadays you see that now where we are just, hey, security, everything's secure. All right, back off.
Yep, and it's a reaction to society somewhat, because if you were to go forced entry in an effort to help someone that's suicidal, they pull the gun on you that you knew they had, and you kill them. Society's like, well, you just made it worse. You just made that. However, on the flip side, when we pull out and they kill themselves, why didn't you do anything about it? And that is one of those just fine lines of being a cop that like people just can't understand. Like there is no, obviously we know we can't appease everybody, but there is just some topics that like society just doesn't understand. Like it's either our fault for this or our fault for that, and there's no middle ground unless we successfully get them out and get them help and get them treated. Statistically, that's not.
It's maybe you want to break it up into thirds. It's 1/3 you have that 100% great interaction. It's done. You have the unfortunate side on either side. Where somebody from law enforcement or the community gets hurt because of it, or that person ends up losing their life, and then you're in that catch-22. It's driving up stories now. So now I'm going to tell like war stories. One time we had a guy that was a person in their apartment. The girlfriend jumped out the window. They were on the first floor. She was scared. He was a vet, and he was having, a problem. And so we pulled in one of our veterans community to try and help that this guy's actually dealt with before, to try and help. And then a bunch of guys on our team were vets. So if they ever needed to get on the phone, they were able to, speak to a veteran, hey, oh yeah, I'm retired Navy or whatever. And so that exact incident, we were able to gain access to his front door, and we sent in a robot. And I'm like, we are sending in a robot to a potentially drunk veteran, like who's having a major issue. I'm like, it might not be the best idea, but it's not my command. So we send in the robot, and the robot goes in, and one of our guys is on the line through the robot, talks to him. The guy just happened to he went to sleep. He held a gun to his girlfriend, scared her enough that, so the crime was committed. And so that's why we were there continuing.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what was going on. We didn't have eyes in the house. So the robot goes in, and it's just a hilarious thing that the robot, hey, what's up? Let's call him Dave or something. Dave, wake up. It's the police tomorrow. Huh? Oh, all right. Come out. All right. I'm coming out. I got to pee first. He gets up, walks to the bathroom, and the freaking robot's there, and he's just peeing. And the robot turns around and just goes, go ahead and walk out the door, and give him all the exit instructions about putting your hands up and stuff. It's a hilarious story that I love. They just say, it was a robot just woke this guy up and told him he needs to walk outside and meet the SWAT operators that are outside in the hallway corridor of the apartment building. And he's, let me pee first. And he walked out and got dealt with. I don't remember the exact resolution of the story, if it was just ended up being a Baker Act or if it ended up being an arrest for the original crime. But, hey, everybody made it out safe. I think the robot took out part of the kitchen counter when it turned around. I think the arm was kind of in the way. Oh, dude, you took a huge gouge in the drywall. But, sorry. So I haven't usually gone into war stories, but,
Those are the best podcasts, dude.
Do a little war story, little fun story that doesn't make it in the news. It's not going to make it in the news, but.
Yeah, our ability to use technology now, like, our team flies drones into windows, breaks them, and flies inside
Yeah.
and looks at people, and you can. I mean, I've seen that once. Usually, they stay outside the structure and try to get as much intel as they can. But
Yeah.
At this point, they were tear gassing. They were doing everything they could to get these people to come out, and they were like, it was the drone that made that. I guess the drone freaked them out because they couldn't see. All their senses were bad, and then those things are loud.
Yeah.
And then when they're in their video, when they're in your living room,
Yeah.
you're like, dude, I just want out of here. Like,
Yeah,
they can't
especially
let
if they're
out.
using like a Mavic, and then like we would put the cages on the Mavics, so it's like the way the props have to fly to work with the cages in case you bump into stuff inside the house. It's like the pitch and the noise that those things made. They're just so loud, bumblebees. But yeah, that's why I've done that too. Not for SWAT, but the department did pay for me to get my drone license. So,
Yeah, and that's
thanks for that.
I heard that test is the FAA test.
Yeah,
I heard it's hard.
it is hard. It is hard. I went to a school in Winter Haven. I had to Polk County. What's up? Good time there, but I had to do a 40-hour online course prior to. That basically was all the lessons and stuff. There's a guy out of Ocala that does Remote Pilot 101. I did all of that for the week before, and you take a lot of mock tests and everything, and then you went there. We were at the class in Winter Haven. The first day was basically just a cramming session with the instructors talking about it. And, hey, you guys have any questions that you didn't get answered there? All right, Tuesday, you're going to take it. So I went and took it at the Kissimmee Regional Airport, and thankfully passed it. And then the rest of the week was operations. They've got like a little cityscape set up at the college. They have like a street, so that's like where their police academy is. So they had like a like a fake restaurant and like a street and everything, sidewalks and all that stuff, and it kind of does like an L. So it's pretty cool. I bet you that they probably have some good training there.
We have almost, I don't want to say every squad, but it is on our patrol. There's drones. There's always a drone guy.
Yeah.
And they're becoming more and more frequent. Like you'll hear the drone's up, and you're like, "Why's the drone up? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? The guy's not doing anything. He has a zone to hump, but if he's got no calls, and there's somewhat of a call that's starting to develop, why not have a drone up?
Yeah, that's how they had it in Polk. The guy teaching us was their sergeant, and so at one point he had his radio on, and he's like, "Oh, we're doing a burglary right now," and so they use it's called a Raspberry Pi server on their drones, and so he's able to log in. That's how they push it to command staff and stuff. Like they have their own server website for it, so you can stream it. So we just sat there in class and watched their guy searching for a burglary suspect, and he had to come down and change his battery. And so the sergeant was like, all right, well, we watched this for 15 minutes as he flew around, helping, just like what the helicopter would be doing, and change his battery out. Yeah, it's cheaper. But then the sergeant told us the next day or after lunch or whatever that he goes, once he changed that battery out, when we cut the feed and went back to class, he goes, they found him. So they found the guy. So it was a good resolution to the situation for the burglary, and it was able to help. But it was badass, and it's cheaper. And so they had guys driving around in Dodge Rams with tonneau covers, and their operators had like a big Pelican box, and they just pull it out, deploy off the back of the Dodge Ram, and off they go, and they're there. And then you gotta, per legal guideline or per the laws and stuff, you got to have a secondary sitting there watching for your visual observations in case the FAA is watching the podcast. Because I have to take my retest or my recert by the end of the month. So I have my reminder in my phone that I got to do the recert. It's a little easier, especially post-COVID. They let you do it online. We used to have to go into an airport testing center and do it, and it's like strict, and you're like at a computer. It's a sterile environment and stuff. And
It's like when you take the police exam.
yeah. Well, when I took mine, it was in the convention center, and there was like 600 people taking it.
Really?
Yeah, there was it was just convention center with like rows and rows and rows. Oh yeah, yeah, maybe. But then again, mine was 2005.
I was still in high school.
Yeah. 2005 test. So I was in the job when I got the iPhone, when I got the original iPhone.
Back when policing was hard and tough.
Yeah. I didn't have Nextels, but we had Razors. You couldn't take cool pictures.
Yeah. Policing before smartphones and body cams was a completely... didn't experience it.
Yeah.
But even people that maybe were on the tail end of it will tell you, I'm sure you can attest, it was a different time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, you had payphones everywhere. Like when I started, we had a guy that didn't carry a cell phone. He only had a pager. So like if you needed him and you couldn't get him on the radio or whatever, you had to page him and he'd go to find a payphone somewhere. And like that was 2005. I mean, there were phones. Like we had a Razor phone. That's like probably the second best phone in my opinion. But yeah, they had guys like that. But then, you know, you had your Nextel generation in policing. Like I was in college for Nextel and we all had Nextels and it was great. But that's where I learned about where guys would get in trouble because they would be Nextel policing. So they'd stay off the radio and they'd be
chirping.
They'd be talking to each other on Nextel.
Yeah.
Dispatching each other, like, you know, when they're out hunting and they're looking for, you know, the drug dealers, or they're following a suspect or something like that, or a guy they think is about to do a robbery. They'd be doing it all off that, and then all of a sudden they'd get in a foot chase and come over. I mean, it's just like Street Crimes does when they're on Attack Channel, and then somebody finally jumps over to Maine, and you're chasing all this.
We usually have one guy dedicated to relaying for that little mini op that we're doing. We'll have one guy that's like, I'm going to keep dispatch informed, whether it be a call them, let them know what we're doing, or getting on the radio and saying, so everybody can hear, all the patrol units can hear, this is what we're doing. Just something, you know, so where it's not like, oh, by the way, foot chase. You know,
all of a sudden a foot chase, start me a perimeter at this location, and then, you know, everybody's sitting at lunch. Whereas, you know, it's good when Street Crimes comes over and says, hey, we're going to be in the area of this plaza. Stay out of the area, please. But be right on the border, ready to pinch over in case we need you.
Well, there's always Big Brother in policing that ruins everything. And that's why sometimes guys get those separate apps to communicate with each other, because there's always somebody listening to the TAC channel or the car-to-car channel that's going to have a problem with something, or, you know, not say anything. And then when you have your use of force report, they chime in and say, well, I heard, you know, it's just, there's always somebody. Somebody's got to ruin it.
Yeah.
There's always not a real cop in the room.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's the tech, but yeah, the technology has totally changed everything. And you kind of said it before, and when you mentioned the body cameras, but when we were talking about, you know, communicating with people versus, you know, grabbing and going hands on and use of force and stuff like that, the body cams have really changed a lot of it to where you're probably saying things now just to catch it on body cam.
Yep.
Stop
resisting. Stop resisting.
You know, like, or I did it just the other day where I'm like, hey, how you doing, in the back seat? You know, I get sent around to the other door. Hey, put the seatbelt on him. You know, hey, how you doing? I'm now going to be placing the seatbelt. I'm doing it like super over the top. I'm now going to be placing the seatbelt on you. You're going to hear the click, you know, and it's almost just documenting, time stamping for the body cam. Like, be aware that if you're not even seeing it, look, click. That's the click of the seatbelt going on the person, so that you're not in any kind of, you know. So it's
well, now we live in a society where if it's not on body cam, it didn't happen. It used to be when you took an oath and society essentially blessed you to wear a badge to enforce laws. Your word meant something. When you went on the stand, you said what you said. It was determined to be truth. Unless there was a reason to not, you know, on the Brady list. Unless there was a reason to think this person's not. You were a cop. You were telling the truth.
Yeah.
Now if it's not on body camera, it didn't happen, and we don't care what you say.
Yeah.
You know.
He mentions the Brady list for anybody watching. Then the Brady list is like, if you are a proven liar, if you have been documented that you did falsify a document and stuff like that, you go on a list that doesn't pretty much allow you to testify. It basically says you're an asshole, like you have lied, and you can't be trusted. Like we would all hope that everybody believes that what we're saying is factual. Same thing with this podcast.
Good plug. Truth matters.
But so, all right. So we've talked a lot about just life, and we're just rapping. We called this kind of like a bro podcast where we're gonna talk. There's not gonna be much of a, you know, method. There's not a list of questions that I sent him, and he's woefully unprepared for coming on a podcast. But I think him and I, that's the way we like to do it, right?
Yeah.
We'd prefer not to research and just BS and go over stuff. And hopefully I haven't lost everybody. But talk to me about the Antihero Podcast, and kind of where it came from, or like what sprouted.
I've always wanted to do a podcast. Like when I was coming out of college, like I said before, I didn't have anything to talk about. I had no life experience. I mean, I had some military. I had my deployment and my stint in the Army, but I'm a very outspoken person. I would classify myself as a union guy. I go against the grain. I hate mob mentality. I hate groupthink. Essentially, for the most part, I do not get along with anything. It's not that I do not get along. I do not condone admin. There is a necessity for them. Obviously, you can't have a police entity or an agency without administration. I'm not saying that. However, the type of people that admin are that strive to be admin, I typically don't like personally. I would not like that person in a room. Mm-hmm. They are the ones that typically become admin, so that's a red flag. And police admin is government. It's essentially what they are. They are government. I'm an anti-government guy. Not beep.
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. Yeah,
I am I like don't trust the government.
Well, but what you're saying to me is that you enjoy to challenge everything.
Yes,
and I agree with you on that. Challenge everything, question everything, and I think that's where society is kind of a little bit gone to, or at least our kind of society right now is question everything. You know, like somebody tells you something. All right, cool. Let me just do a little bit of research on that, and I'll get back to you. All right, cool, great. Let's talk now, because now I understand where you're coming from. I can't take it for surface value. Not that I'm going to put you on any kind of Brady list or not believe you in general, but let me just do some research so I'm better educated about the subject. So sorry, I'm taking over.
No, you're good.
But yeah, that's so that's what you're saying. So that's kind of where you where you branched into, or what kind of motivated you.
Yeah, I'm a cop. I believe in the social contract theory. I believe that people have not the I pay your salary people, but people truly have society has determined me through training and certifications to enforce laws that the social contract theory abides by. You know, somebody steals $1,000 worth of equipment out of your shed, and you see him, you can't go beat the shit out of him because you'll go to jail. You can't administer justice. As a cop, I can. You entrust me to go do that investigation and bring him to justice and get you your stuff back. I like that. You know, we all agree to some extent how to live amongst each other, and there's always going to be people, bad apples, or people that need to be punished in a way, essentially, for their actions against the tribe. That's where I feel like real cops are. We are a representation of society. Whatever laws they enact, whatever things they vote on, determines us. And so we are not government stormtroopers. Law enforcement as a whole was put to the test during COVID. Mm-hmm. I know different parts of the country, different parts of the world, different agencies here and there all had their own issues. But as a culture, that's when a lot of cops were like, would I do this? Would I do that? What if I was 19 years in, 18 years in, and another COVID hit? Would I be okay with turning in my badge because I'm not going to enforce tyrannical federal government laws? And so that just woke us all up. And I was an advocate for people that are like, F these cops, F these, think about that. You are 1 year away from retiring. And it's a big thought to put your badge on the table and give it all away. You have to worry about your family. Your wife not be on board with that. She might leave you over it. Your kids might despise you because you can't live with the home you have. I mean, there is a lot to think about.
Yeah.
When all you did was serve the community for 19 years. And I just...
Yeah. I mean, my wife and I had that conversation. I'm like, all right, if the department says that I'm thinking you're talking about the shot. And so like some of those departments that mandated, like the military did, that you had to get it. And so I talked to my wife about, am I going to do it or not, and that kind of thing. So, and I decided not to, and history is on my side, I guess, on that situation. And it didn't do anything to me. And my department thankfully didn't push push us to make that decision. But there was agencies and people that had to make that decision and had to live with it on whether that what they were going to do and what they felt like and what was best for them. But yeah, but could you imagine if my department told me, hey, you got to get something, and I didn't really want to, but then it's like, all right, I'm at 18, 19 years and I could be done with a career or whatever, you know, like, do I leave? Like it's tough.
What
So
about mask mandates? You know,
Yeah.
I think a lot of agencies and departments around the country were saying we're enforcing mask mandates and enforcing curfews and enforcing the laws about social distancing and stuff, but no one actually did, because I think admin knew the ramifications of turning that ship that way, because that's when you can get some real anti-cop people that are people that already don't like the government. There's some people that distrust the government, but they respect police because of what I just said. They understand that they elected a sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
They understand that the sheriff deputized these men. They are a reflection of me. I don't hate them.
Yeah.
And I try to keep that balance with any citizen that I come in contact with or person. I tell them my first name. I go by Tyler. I don't go by Deputy Hoover.
Totally. Same thing.
And that's not me trying to like engage with them. That's
Humanize
how I truly,
or anything like that.
That's how I truly feel, man. My name's Tyler. Like,
Yeah.
there's a
Well, I go with the Spider-Man aspect. Like, oh, we're gonna use our made-up names. You know, like when he says to Doctor Strange, when he's like Doctor Strange, he's like, oh, we're using our made-up names. Like, that's how I feel about myself. It's like people are like, what's your name? Justin. Like, that's my name. Like, my family name is Yarborough. My name's Justin. And so I'm not gonna Officer Yarborough. No, officer's just the title that was given to me because I went through training and I got sworn in to do something. But my name's Justin. Like, here's who I am. Like, and then you can figure it out. You can get your police report or read it on the card when I give you the case number and stuff like that, the last name and the badge number and stuff like that. But my name's Justin. Like, that's who I am. So.
I got sidetracked though.
Yeah.
The origins of the podcast.
Yeah, origins of the podcast.
Yeah. So essentially, it's a funny story. I started my t-shirt company, and I was like, I need to market. I have a very specific niche of people that I need to market to. So I was like, I need to get on podcasts. At the time, there was no podcast to get on.
Yeah.
I couldn't get on any podcast. I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, this sucks. So I was like, well, I'll start a podcast to kind of be to advertise in a way indirectly my clothing line. I'll be wearing the shirts. I'll have the sign in the back. I'll say it every show. I sponsored myself in a weird way.
Yeah.
And then as the podcast started to grow, I decided to use it from day one. I wanted to, but I decided to. I'm very outspoken about like the ways cops are treated, and the gripes and moans, and not just the everyday gripes and moans, like the real issues that street cops deal with. I wanted to be a vocal point for that. I wanted to represent, because sometimes the unions drop the ball too. Unions some are really good, some suck.
Yeah, nobody's perfect. Nothing's perfect in this world.
So that was my driving force. And then we started like expanding, and I was like, well, I want to turn it into a cultural podcast by a cop. Right? So I wanted to not just talk about police things, but I wanted to have any guests on that. But you're watching it through the eyes of a cop, through my words, through my questions, my understanding. So I had the crowd, the military crowd and the law enforcement crowd. We tried to keep it a culture podcast.
Yeah.
And then I joined forces with Brent about 6 months ago. 6 months in, 6 months ago, somewhere around there. And then it kind of.
So did you do it by yourself beforehand?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I had a co-host that would like a temp co-host, a sub co-host, but around, I want to say 6 months in, I realized I didn't necessarily hit a plateau, but I realized I needed to enact Plan B because I couldn't sustain. My big thing was putting out an episode a week. I've only missed 1 week, and that was Christmas of this last year.
Nice.
And we decided to take a week off for Christmas.
Yeah.
But since I started this, since episode 1, I've put out a podcast every Monday. So, but I noticed with that is this one of the biggest logistical nightmares for a podcast is scheduling guests.
Yeah.
And it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because everybody's like, well, I can do it. And you're like, as a podcaster, you're thinking, I need this Monday covered. And people are like, I can't do that one, but I can do this one. And you're like, cool. All right, I'll schedule for that. Now you're freaking, you have all the other Mondays scheduled, but you kind of need that. You need this one. And then you're like, you can ask your buddies to come on, but I started realizing like what I need is a co-host. I need that. This podcast needs that. And I was just kind of in denial or didn't want to put in the work to find one. So then I went 2 or 3 weeks of picking my brain, and Brent had been on my podcast a couple times, and his numbers didn't lie. People love the Delta Force. You could be a total piece of shit as a human, but if you were a Navy SEAL or Delta Force, people are going to watch your podcast.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Brent's not a piece of shit.
Yeah.
So,
he seems like a good guy.
He's a stand-up dude.
Yeah.
I was like, man, his episode's killed. So I was like, this is a no-brainer. So I drafted up this entire fucking packet of all the analytics, all the suspected projections, benefits, blah, blah, blah. And I brought it to him. And, Brent, he rolls with a crew. He's got an entourage of people with him, good friends. And I went into his coffee warehouse. He's like, hey, Tyler, what's up? And I was like, hey, man, I want to talk to you about something. And I handed it to him, and I was nervous. I was sweating. I was like, I want you to co-host my podcast with me. And everybody went quiet and looked at him because what's Brent going to say to this? And he went, okay.
Yeah.
And he put it down. He's like, I have no reason not to. He's like, my business-wise, he's like, I've always wanted to start a podcast. His company, First Responders Coffee Company, is centered around first responders. He's like, this is a no-brainer. I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then from then on, he's never read it.
Yeah.
I put so much work into that.
It's like, you don't need to tell me the numbers. Let's just do it and have fun. And I think, and that's part of the cool thing about this generation or this technology now is that we can sit here and do this. Like you and I talked about it before the show. Like we don't have backgrounds in this kind of stuff as far as cameras, editing, microphones, sound design, nothing. But you can learn it all and you can have fun doing it as long as you like talking to people, which as police officers, we like talking to people. I was explaining that about
we're at least good at
it. Or think we are. And but the numbers don't lie, as you said. And so like this with the donut shop, it's a donut shop, even though it's a hotel room. But somebody interesting comes in and you want to talk to them. And you just talk to them, and then for you, all it does is then just springboards up, and it just launches. And for you guys, it just took off, or has taken off. And it seems cool that you have a solid dude like Brent to be able to, work with. And then you guys have a cool angle with being able to break down that because you've mentioned on episodes before with the military, like you said, that somebody wants to hear about it. If that's a Ranger, a SEAL, or a Green Beret, or somebody, those titles that they know. All right, I want to listen to these guys talk. And but sometimes they have the wrong aspect about enforcing laws inside the United States or society. Enforcing them on society because they're not really supposed to be doing that. So you're able to then chime in and go, yeah, this is how we would handle it. Yeah. This is what we're going to do as far as the law enforcement. And you have the military background to be able to associate and give credence to even being able to talk to those guys, that kind of thing. So I think it's awesome. It works out. It works out super cool. So it's good. We'll take another break and we'll be right back. Hey, come here. Come here. No. Bring it in real close. I got something for you. Did you subscribe yet? Right down there. Hit that subscribe button and the bell notification because you got to know when we're going to give you a show. Do it. Go now. Go now. I'm waiting. Come on. Right there. All right, back to the show. All right, we're back from break. Good pee break.
Do I seem short to you?
And so it's the chairs.
Is it?
It's the chairs. It's not you. The two of us you'll see in the thumbnail or in the in any social media pictures. We're about the same height, but it just these chairs at this table.
We got new chairs at our studio. I sat it for the first time with the Eddie Gallagher episode, and I'm like, this sucks. I was up all the way. Now Brent, my co-host, is like 6'1" or some shit.
Yeah.
And he looks tall, and I look like he brought his kid to the podcast. Like I'm like, and these things are down all the way.
Yeah.
They are down all the way.
I put these together, and I extended it, and then I sat down in this chair, and I go, oh, This one's coming all the way down. I was going to try because I also brought boom arms, but the edges of the table are rounded and the boom arms don't have, and it's not like I have a bunch of stuff here with me, like pieces of wood to add to it to make it so I can clamp. So I was like, all right, we're going with the stands. So this is I think going to be my mobile setup because they can come apart better than a freaking boom arm with springs and cables and stuff like that. So you guys built the brand new studio. Brent's been with you for a little while now. The podcast is rolling and kicking ass. What's it like, working now with this kind of new style with Brent, with a co-host and stuff? Like, how do you guys see it going forward?
Well, it is rather challenging being a co-host with somebody of that caliber person. He's amazing. Caliber, a reputation, and caliber following. Like he's a Delta Force guy. I'm just a street cop, and cops don't give a shit about street cops. They don't. So it's kind of I have to. What do you call that? Like I have to put in work. Like I have to show that I should be there too. And in all reality, and you
have to qualify yourself.
Yeah,
kind of thing. Like when you. Just like if I talk to my parents' friends, like, what do you do? I'm a police officer. Are you a detective? No, I mean, I solve crimes and stuff like that, but not like a detective. But everybody wants to hear rank or specialization, and if you don't have that, then they, at least maybe it's just some of us, we feel like it's an inferiority thing or something like that. But so you have to qualify yourself or try to set yourself up to where he's at.
Yeah, you have to make sure you're relevant. Like I don't know if relevant's the right word, but like if you were to if Brent were to leave, could I sustain that podcast on my own? So I was like, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe we would lose a crucial amount of followers because they're there because of Brent and his reputation and his stories and his personality. So I was like, okay, well, I need to make sure that I can hold my own weight. And so started rebranding myself. And it is. It could be.
You sound like you're almost trying to beat a question out of me, like you're turning this podcast around on me. So like
everybody's wondering,
like the elephant in the room or something like that.
If you crop this, what we're about to talk about, to the beginning, we'd retain everybody.
Everybody's gonna want to know.
I see people in your comments, but seriously, what happened?
Like where's Nick? And so no, it's true. You guys now episode 2 of version 2 of Donut Shop Podcast with Justin, and I mean Nick is that big, larger than life personality. He's that, he comes with his status already into something like a Donut Shop Podcast that we as friends created and started out and built. And he's got things that he wants to be able to do on his own for him and his family and stuff like that. So he, chose to move on. There wasn't a fight or anything like that, for anybody that wants, nitty gritty details and stuff, it's just, it came a time where, he said he's got to move on. So he moved on. I mean, I'm PGing a little bit, but there was no curse words. There was no fighting, there's definitely sadness, maybe on my end. I don't know about his end, but, and we can still talk. I mean, I think our phone numbers still work, but, for the most part, he's gone off and he's doing his thing. And so that leads back to what you were saying, can I do this by myself? And I dealt with it as far as, being bummed and, do you, get depressed and just, throw it away? And it's like, no, I have this cool sign. Like, why would I throw it away now? But, I didn't want to throw it away because it's something that I've enjoyed doing. I've learned a lot doing a podcast. I find it fun to get together and meet with interesting people. And that was the whole point of starting the podcast, whether Nick is on it or not. I'm still going to keep going and I'm going to try to keep it going. And I said it in a video before, I wish him the best and good luck. I don't hate him, but it's a bummer. Wish he was here. It was, he added a little bit of fun, but there's that interdynamics too, where when you're on a podcast, there's probably people in the former podcast that didn't hear me talk Didn't hear me just do a 200-word dissertation on an episode. And part of that is because Nick's got a big personality, and Nick, commands the attention of the cameras and commands the attention of the time.
There's things that have to be done in a co-hosted podcast that it's things that have to be done for the two people out of respect, and then there's things that has to be done for the viewer and the listener. And one of them is one thing me and Brent went through is that like when I asked him to co-host a podcast, I used to podcast out of my house. Well, he was like, "Can we podcast here at the coffee studio?" He's like, "I want." That's, and I was like, "I don't have any reason not to." So absolutely, let's start this relationship with just telling each other yes all the time, not holding each other back. So we started it there, and then we just one day we arranged the seats, and we sat down and started a podcast, and we kept it. Well, Brent was in the middle, and I was starting to worry, like, are newcomers gonna see me as a side guy, and Brent is the main focus of the podcast? And that's nothing that Brent ever wanted or asked for. It's literally just how we sat down. For sure. The guest would be on one side, Brent would be in the middle, and then the guest would be, and then I would be on the other side of Brent. And so when we switched studios, I was like, hey, man, I'm just going to be honest with you. I feel like when we do this, we should do it like this. Your side, my side, guest in the middle. And he goes, absolutely, 100%. He gets it. So it's small details like that. And the way y'all setup was you were in the middle, but however, your former co-host, Nick, and any guests were facing each other.
Yeah.
So you already physically were the side guy.
Yeah, I was taking.
You were already fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah, there was a second fiddle sort of thing, and I'm patting myself in the back or humble about that. Like, I'm cool with it, and because I kind of understood where I was, as far as the hierarchy of popularity, why people were there. Appreciate y'all that are still here, and like that kind of thing. And so, yeah, there was always that dynamic, and it's the amazing thing that people may not think about, and feel free to drop a comment if you're still, enjoying that is how you see how people sit, how you see the way they talk on the video portion of the podcast. Those of you in audio land probably just, you just listen and you just hear it. But, we both Tyler and I deal with the video side. And so then you've got to deal with how you're going to place each other, how you're going to sit with the guests, and how you interact. On this new style of the podcast, I've been kind of sitting in the corner, or, sitting us kind of corner to each other so we talk. But a part of that has been because of the mobile nature of how I'm doing it now. I'm trying to go to a donut shop and do it in a donut shop, or I'm doing it in a hotel room right now. So it just doesn't really lend itself to what a studio is, where if I was like you guys, or like how we used to have for Donut Shop, and you've got a specific table setup, how do you design it to make sure that the conversation looks good, natural, and that nobody's playing Premiere versus, sidecar or whatever. So,
well, the good thing is, it's like when your parents split up, you get 2 Christmases. Like, you guys get 2 podcasts.
Yeah.
His and Nick's.
Yeah, exactly.
You get 2 now.
Yeah, you get 2 podcasts.
He gets you every other weekend.
Yeah. So, maybe you'll see Nick pop up in the future. Maybe not. Who knows? But that's kind of where I'm going with things. We talked about it beforehand, how, our podcasts are different. You guys have that. You have that street cop and military aspect where you guys are talking about current events. You guys are doing case studies on former events, which is cool for the history buffs in the world. Whereas this one's a little bit more of just learning about the person. It's more guest driven.
Well, yours is also very relaxed and inviting. I've said more about myself personally than I've ever said on my own podcast, because from the start, when we press go, it's go time. It's like ball busting, trying to. I mean, in all reality, I'll be honest, and Brent knows this too. Don't be the weaker one of the two.
Yeah.
Have respect for the other one, but you both need to be hitting 50 so you can give 100 as a group. Mm-hmm. If one person's only giving 20, the other guy is going to bump it to 80, and then that's on you.
Yeah.
You're not providing. So,
and that really could have been part of our other issue in version 1 of Donut Shop Podcast was, maybe I was only given 20%. On
the flip side, though, Brent will, if he notices that a guest is more his guest rather than mine. You know, we've had Delta Force guys, Navy SEALs on and stuff. Brent will go. And Tyler, what do you think about that? Or, you know, a little kayfabe, he'll text me and say, hey, I think you should ask a question about this, right? And he, out of respect, wants me to be included and doesn't want it to just be his show with this guest.
Yeah.
But because sometimes, you know, you'll have, I mean, you might have felt it too, where you're just like, I don't really know what to do. Say like you don't want to fuck with their dynamic, because they got something good going on, but you don't want to be like, hey, don't forget about me.
No, I mean, so for bros, you don't want to be that shitty wingman where you're just like, hey man, so is anybody? Do you need to go to the bathroom, bro? And it's like, no, I'm talking, dude. I'm talking, bro. Like, leave me alone. You know, so you definitely don't want to. You don't want to work that shitty wingman. You just want to. I am here for you. You give me the signal, and you tell me when you're ready to come in to talk. You know, like that kind of thing. So, there's a little behind the curtain, a little bit of the dynamic of what happens with a podcast, especially with multiple hosts. And
but the good thing about podcasts is that me being a guest, people would love it, but they might not like my podcast. They much prefer your podcast. Or on the flip side, you know, they might prefer an hour of fucking straight entertainment,
straight ball busting.
And they might their attention span might not be what's needed for like an intelligent intellectual conversation podcast, like a Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah,
it's like Joe Rogan versus like Pat McAfee. You know, like
you know
what I'm saying? That's like,
another fun one. Those ones, I catch that like on my day off, and if I'm sitting down to eat lunch or something like that, or I'm trying to do something, I turn it on. I'm like, fuck, bro, to be a podcast, which I had one that was similar to that back in the day. It was about soccer, the Tailgate Show, still available on some networks if you still want to listen to it. But it was just a lot of different personalities around a table, just like they have, where they'll go to a guy and he's just talking about one thing, and Pat's just that host. We had a guy named Chris, and he was a big personality, and he was hilarious, and everybody loved him, and the rest of us would just join in on the table at different points for different things. And we were just talking about the Fort Lauderdale Strikers soccer team back in the day when they were playing in Fort Lauderdale, and it was fun. But the Pat Show, they're a crazy one.
And just not even while you're recording, but going back to what we were talking about, being like a personality. Like, I was the guy that did my load of the work. I did my fair share of the work, 100%. But people don't see that.
Right.
So if I'm the guy that, like, Brent is the guy with the connections. He can get the big name guests on. He did 20 years in the Special Forces community, 10 of it on Delta Force. He deserves all of that. He deserves every kudos that he gets. So he has, and he was like, I can bring heavy hitters. I can give my perspective on topics. Like cops, like I said, cops don't give a shit about cops. They love Special Forces dudes.
Yeah.
So, and Special Forces dudes, but on the, so he can draw from the first responders, and he can draw from the military. My perspective, cops typically, traditionally, cynically, we always say we don't support each other, and then the military really doesn't care about me either. So I'm fighting for I don't want to call it respect, but like maybe it is, like, I'm fighting for, so I had to go, and I was realizing that people can't see the hours upon hours and editing and social media and everything I'm doing and the scheduling. And, I was like, I need to actually show them that I'm, as sad as it is, like, I'm showing them that I bring something to the table as a co-host.
Yeah.
Like, I'll make me interesting to you, by the end of the day.
Hey, man, you're speaking to the choir now. So I definitely... I hear it, and it's good, and the podcast stuff's fun, and it's just dope meeting people like you. We'll wrap it up, and it's a good note to add or to end on. Tell them you guys got a lot of stuff to plug usually, and so tell them where they can find it.
We're on YouTube and all platforms, all audio platforms. So we're on Instagram, TikTok, sadly.
Not for long, maybe.
Yeah. So, but we're called the Antihero Podcast. You can't miss it. It's a green skeleton with a microphone. And yeah, I feel like we're somewhat entertaining.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
I
try to mix it all.
It's yeah. I mean, the I call it micro content, the reels and stuff that you put out, because you got so many hot topics and sometimes controversial stuff and hot takes.
Well, yeah, we did an entire episode essentially defending Derek Chauvin, and you don't do that as a cop.
Yeah.
You do not. When that happened, what was so irritating to me is that I'm a right fighter. Swear to God, I think I'm on the spectrum, but I can't fathom groupthink and sheep-like mentality. And when we were all told as cops, like, hey, we all know George Floyd was a shit show, and the narrative that they're spinning isn't true, but go with it and don't ever say anything against it.
Yeah.
And God forbid you say something defending the most evilest man in the world, Derek Chauvin. So that's how we lived. And then at some point, Brent's not a cop. He doesn't have to worry about what he says. I'm an active street cop. I have to worry about every syllable that comes out of my mouth.
Yeah.
He doesn't. And he's like, what the fuck? Why y'all? What was the George Floyd thing? And I was like, you want to do it? And he goes, let's do it, man.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't care. And I was like, okay. And so we went in full send, and that people were reaching out to us on a massive scale about how thank you for saying this, because we all know it. We had a media company reach out to us that tried to steal us from our one we're at now, and I was like, hey, just so you know, we were talking, and I'm like, just so you know, we don't hold anything back. We're truth seekers, and we're not what do you call that?
Placaters to
we're not
drum beaters of somebody's.
Yeah, we're not PC.
Yeah.
And I was like, for instance, we just released a video or a podcast about George Floyd, and it's probably not the narrative that you want. He's like, that's the reason why I'm calling you.
Yeah.
So he's
wow.
like, so it's just stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, with that, people used to ask me all the time, and I go, one of the biggest thing, like from my experience in life, in the career, is just, I go, the picture that people post of him down there with George Floyd, I go, that's just him pooping his pants, going, fuck, look at these people walking up to me. What do I do next? What do I do next? And I go, most of that, I think it was a brain fart.
Yeah.
The amount of time that everybody wants to post like a game clock up there and stuff like that, I go, it's a brain fart. That's what that was.
Did you see the training manual illustration
of what Minnesota or what the Minneapolis has?
Yeah, it's verbatim what he did.
Exactly what he did. Yeah,
it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, even if you want to say like, okay, that was wrong, you still have to take accountability for teaching that. And then they went into open court and said they never taught it. And then, so they just lied. They were like, you know what? They just lied. They had no defense. They had no way out. They lied, and we ate it up as a society. And then Derek Chauvin's mom, her son's in prison, is pulling out the manuals that Derek had.
Yeah,
she's like,
we ate it up because, as you said before, the groupthink, the mob mentality pushed it all upon us, forced it upon people, and
it was politicized.
It forced everybody to take a knee, to do all that kind of stuff, and it's just, but I think the world's coming on the pendulum swing back, and harder in the other direction, I think, which hey man, you guys are getting on the wave of getting on that harder, being the tip of the spear, I guess you could say, to showing people that, like, look, no, we need to have real conversations and actually talk, and not placate to all the BS that a lot of people want you to push.
Brent's made a name for himself by calling out famous special forces people. So if you have heroes that were all in the movies and stuff, just be wary about checking out our channel, because there's a lot of truth that you don't know about Chris Kyle, Tim Kennedy, Marcus Luttrell, Rob O'Neill, all those guys. There's a lot.
Yeah. There's some of those. I was hoping you weren't going to say like my true heroes like Chuck Norris and Arnold Schwarzenegger. I hope you weren't pulling those names out. But just those guys? Okay, just those guys. Whatever. Beat them up. So awesome stuff. Well, this has been fucking fun. You guys don't know, we've actually been sitting around for like 3 hours talking, even though the episode's only going to be like an hour and 15 minutes. But we talked a lot before then. So thank you very much. Cheers, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Stay safe, and thank you, everybody. Bye.
Calling all units. Donut Shop has a fresh dozen. Go ahead and take a 1040.